There is a monster coming for us. It is not an asteroid from the dark of space. It is not a plague born in a distant lab. It is a terror that moves at the speed of your fingernails growing. A killer so slow, so patient, that it has ground entire civilizations to dust without anyone ever knowing its name. This monster is the ground beneath your feet. And it is moving. Right now, the city you live in is drifting. The continent it rests upon is a raft of rock, floating on a sea of molten mantle. We have known this in principle for a century. We call it plate tectonics. We measure it. We can watch with GPS satellites as North America creeps away from Europe, as the Atlantic Ocean widens, a wound stretching with every passing year. We can see Australia, untethered, sprinting north at a few inches per year, on a collision course with Southeast Asia. This is not a theory. It is a geologic fact. But we live our lives on a human timescale. We worry about seasons, about elections, about lifetimes. We have tricked ourselves into believing that the map is fixed, that the continents are permanent features of our world. This is our greatest, most profound illusion. The Earth itself has a different timescale. It does not measure in years. It measures in eons. And on that timescale, the continents are not rafts. They are predators. They are hunting each other. The Earth's internal heat, the leftover fire from its own violent birth, must escape. It does so by churning the planet's molten mantle, creating immense, slow-motion currents called convection cells. These currents are the engine of our world. They drag the continental plates across the globe like debris on a boiling pot. The plates crash, they grind, they tear apart, and they reassemble. This is the planet's true heartbeat. It is called the supercontinent cycle. We are living in just one phase of that cycle. We are living in the scattering phase. The last time the continents met, they formed a single unbroken landmass. We call it Pangea. It was a world of giants and monsters, a world that ended in the single greatest extinction event our planet has ever known. Before Pangea, there was Rodinia. Before Pangea, Nuna. The geological record is a graveyard of these lost worlds. These megacontinents, each one assembled in violence and torn apart by fire. And we are next. We are not an exception. We are just an intermission. The cycle is already turning. The Atlantic, which is now opening, is a new ocean. But the Pacific is an old ocean. It is dying. It is shrinking, its edges being devoured by subduction zones. The ring of fire that pulls the ocean floor back into the Earth's mantle. This subduction is reeling in the continents that surround it. Asia, Australia, North America, and South America are all being drawn, slowly, inexorably, toward each other. Scientists have modeled this future. The exact configuration is a matter of debate. Will the continents gather over the Arctic, forming Amasia? Will the Atlantic reverse its course and slam shut, reforming Pangea Ultima? In the end, the name does not matter. The outcome is the same. In roughly 200 to 250 million years, the scattering will end. The long drift will be over. The continents of our world, our familiar, separate homes, will collide. This is not a gentle docking. It is an event of unimaginable violence, stretched over millions of years. It is the slowest apocalypse imaginable. When the landmasses finally meet, they will not stop. They will buckle. They will shatter. They will plow into one another with the force of 1 billion earthquakes. This collision is the first horseman of our apocalypse. It is the trigger. It is the event that will forge the Hiraeth, the hothouse, the great desert. It is the act that will create the crucible for Earth's next nightmare. The pieces are on the board. The game has already begun. What happens when worlds collide? Not in a flash of light, but in a slow-motion catastrophe that lasts longer than our species has existed? The first consequence is not on the ground, but in the sky. The first casualty is the air we breathe. When two continental plates meet, they are too buoyant to be pushed down into the mantle. They have nowhere to go but up. This process is called orogeny. It is the birth of mountains. We have one modern example of this, the collision of the Indian subcontinent with Asia. The result of that single, ongoing impact is the Himalayan plateau and the Tibetan plateau, the roof of our world. It is a scar so vast it dictates the climate of an entire continent, spawning the monsoons that feed billions. Now, take that event and multiply it. Imagine North America crashing into Asia. Imagine Africa, which is already pushing into Europe, finally crushing the Mediterranean out of existence and merging with the new landmass. Imagine a single, unbroken mountain range stitching the continents together. A range of peaks that dwarf the Himalayas. Mountains that are not 5, but 8 or 10 miles high, scraping the very edge of the stratosphere. These mountains are a wall. They will fundamentally, violently rewrite global weather. The jet streams, the rivers of air that carry rain and warmth across our world, will slam into this barrier and be ripped apart. Familiar weather patterns, the cycles of rain and sun that have guided life for 50 million years, will simply cease to exist. The planet's entire atmospheric engine will be broken. But this is only the beginning. The second consequence of this collision is fire. As the continental crust buckles and cracks under the strain, it opens pathways for the molten mantle to escape. The sutures of the new supercontinent, the seams where the old worlds are being joined, will become the single largest volcanic system on Earth. This is not the picturesque, conical volcanism of a Mount Fuji. This is a different, more ancient kind of terror. We are talking about continental flood basalts. We are talking about fissures hundreds of miles long splitting open, venting curtains of fire and magma that bury landscapes the size of countries. We are talking about supercalderas, eruptions so vast they do not create a mountain, but leave a hole. And with this fire comes a flood of gas. For millions of years, this unbroken line of volcanoes will pump incomprehensible volumes of carbon dioxide, methane, and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. The supercontinent is a geological machine for self-immolation. It is building its own funeral pyre. This is the forge. This is how the hothouse Earth is made. The new, thickening atmosphere traps the sun's heat. The planet begins to warm, and warm, and warm. The ice caps, which had waxed and waned for eons, will be the first to go. They will melt completely. The vast, reflective white shields at the poles will vanish, replaced by dark land and dark water, which absorb more heat. This is a feedback loop, a runaway greenhouse effect. The oceans, saturated with CO2, will become acidic, dissolving the shells of plankton, the foundation of the marine food web. The sea levels will rise by hundreds of feet, drowning the old coasts. But this flooding is a cruel joke, because on the new supercontinent, the coast is the only place where life might have a chance. The new world is being forged, and its two primary ingredients are fire and pressure. The climate is not just changing, it is being executed. The stable, gentle world of the Holocene, the only world humanity has ever known, will be a forgotten memory, a brief, cool whisper in the deep, screaming history of the planet. This new hothouse is the second act of the apocalypse, and it sets the stage for the true nightmare, the great interior. The new supercontinent is born. We shall call it Pangaea Ultima. It is a single vast landmass, a cancerous sprawl of rock dominating one hemisphere of the globe. The other hemisphere is a single vast ocean, the superocean. The volcanoes have fallen quiet. The mountains are now mature. The hothouse climate has stabilized, leaving the planet fundamentally hotter than at any point in human history. The stage is set. What is it like to stand in the center of this new world? The first thing you notice is the silence. There is no wind. No, that's not right. There is a wind. It is a constant, superheated breath. But it carries no moisture. It carries no scent of rain, no promise of relief. It is the sterile exhalation of a planet-sized furnace. Welcome to the great interior, a desert that makes the Sahara look like a garden. To understand this place, you must understand a principle called continentality. Water is Earth's great thermostat. It heats up slowly and cools down slowly. This is why coastal cities like San Francisco or London have mild, moderated climates. The ocean acts as a giant thermal battery, absorbing heat in the summer and releasing it in the winter. Land does the opposite. Rock and sand have a very low heat capacity. They heat up almost instantly under the sun's glare, and they lose that heat just as fast when the sun sets. Today, the most extreme climates on Earth are deep in the center of the largest continent, Asia. The Gobi Desert sees scorching summers and bone-chilling winters. Now, take this principle and scale it up to a supercontinent. The new center of Pangaea Ultima is not 1,000 miles from the ocean. It is 3,000 miles, 4,000 miles, 5,000 miles. The moderating influence of the ocean is gone. It is a myth. The moisture that evaporates from the superocean, the endless sea that covers the rest of the planet, has no chance of reaching this place. That moisture-laden air, which would once have brought rain to the continents, now begins its long journey inland. And it immediately slams into the colossal, 10-mile-high mountain ranges that ring the coast, the jagged scars from the continent's formation. This is the most effective rain shadow imaginable. As the wet air is forced up the slopes of these mountains, it cools. This is a law of physics, adiabatic cooling. As it cools, it condenses. It dumps all of its water, all of it, as torrential, unending rain on the coastal side of the mountains. This creates a tiny, hyperhumid fringe world, trapped between the peaks and the sea. But the air that crests those peaks and descends into the interior is now utterly, violently dry. As it descends, it is compressed by the atmospheric pressure below, and it heats up. Adiabatic heating. It is a permanent, planet-scale blast furnace aimed directly at the heart of the continent. This is the Great Interior Desert. It is a basin of sun-baked rock, salt flats, and shifting red dunes larger than all of Africa and North America combined. It hasn't seen a drop of rain in 10,000 years, and it will not see rain for another 10 million. The sun in this world is a tyrant. At midday, the surface temperature of the rock is not 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It is 160, 180. Hot enough to boil water if there were any water left to boil. The air itself shimmers at 140 degrees. The sky is not blue. It is a pale, milky white, choked with dust. Then comes the night. With no water vapor, no clouds to trap the heat, it radiates away into space instantly. The temperature plummets. From 140 degrees, it drops past freezing to 10 below zero. A 150-degree swing in 12 hours. Every single day. This is the nightmare. It is not a world of fire and brimstone. It is a world of absolutes. Absolute heat. Absolute cold. Absolute dryness. It is a sterile, physical hell. Life, which began in the stable, gentle embrace of the ocean, is now stranded on this colossal torture rack. The vast majority of species that survived the hothouse forge will now be brought to this place and executed by the climate itself. This is the new normal. This is the world that will, against all odds, give birth to the nightmare creatures. Life is resilient. It is a chemical infection, a stubborn planetary condition. But this is a challenge unlike any it has ever faced. The formation of Pangaea Ultima is not just a geological event. It is a biological punctuation mark. It is a mass extinction. Let us be clear about what this means. This is not just a bad time for animals. This is a filter. The hothouse conditions of Act 2, the boiling and acidification of the oceans, have already wiped out the majority of marine life. The coral reefs are gone, reduced to white skeletons. The great forests of our time are gone, their habitats shattered. Now, the creation of the Great Interior Desert in Act 3 delivers the killing blow. Entire ecosystems, millions of years in the making, are simply erased. The temperate rainforests, the grasslands, the freshwater rivers, they are all crushed between the coastal mountains or baked into oblivion. This event is a rival to the Great Dying, the Permian-Triassic extinction that occurred at the formation of the last supercontinent, Pangaea. That event eliminated 90% of all species on Earth. We are witnessing its sequel. The world of 250 million years in the future is an empty one. The charismatic megafauna of our time, the elephants, the whales, the lions, the primates, are long, long gone. They were too specialized, too dependent on the stable, wet, fragmented world of the Cenozoic. They were evolutionary relics, and their time is over. So, who survives? Who makes it through the filter? Not the specialists, not the powerful. The survivors are the generalists, the weeds, the pests, the creatures that were already living in the margins, the small, burrowing mammals that could escape the heat, the reptiles whose slow metabolisms and scaly skin already gave them a slight edge, the insects whose sheer numbers and adaptability make them nearly immortal, and a few hardy, drought-resistant plants. This is the remnant, a handful of desperate, hardy lineages clinging to life in the only habitable zones left, the hyperhumid, storm-racked coastal fringes, and the cooler, high-altitude plateaus of the new mountain ranges. For millions of years, this is all there is, an empty world. But an empty world is a world of opportunity. This is the evolutionary crucible. The extinction event has wiped the slate clean. All the old ecological niches are now vacant, and the few survivors will now compete to fill them. This process is called adaptive radiation. It is an explosion of evolution. With no predators and no competition, the few surviving lineages will begin to diversify, to experiment, to adapt. But they are not adapting to a paradise. They are adapting to the nightmare. The intense, unrelenting pressure of the great interior is the hammer, and the survivor's DNA is the anvil. Natural selection will be at its most brutal and creative. Any mutation, any small change, that allows a creature to conserve one extra drop of water, or survive one extra degree of heat, will be an overwhelming advantage. This is where the creatures are born. They are not monsters from an alien planet. They are the great-great-great-grandchildren of the animals we know. They are the descendants of rats, of lizards, of cockroaches, of crows. But they have been forged in an environment so extreme, so utterly alien to our own, that they will be unrecognizable. They will be the new inheritors. They are the biology of the furnace. And the things they will become are the stuff of nightmares, not because they are evil, but because they are perfect. We stand at the edge of the great interior desert, 250 million years after our own time. The air is a searing 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun is a white-hot hole in a dust-filled sky. The ground is a shimmering expanse of salt and red rock. This is the empire of desolation, and it is very much alive. The first rule of this world is that the day is for the dead. Almost nothing moves. The sunlight is a poison. Life here is lived in the shadows, in the cool, and in the dark. The dominant strategy is to simply not exist during the day. The desert floor is riddled with holes, the entrances to deep, spiraling burrows where the animals of this world wait, in a state of suspended animation, for the tyranny of the sun to end. Then, the sun touches the horizon. The heat begins to radiate away. The temperature plummets. And in the twilight, the creatures emerge. They are guided by a principle we already know, convergent evolution. The idea that similar problems, like extreme heat and aridity, will always be solved by similar adaptations, regardless of the animal's ancestry. The creatures of Pangaea Ultima are a horrifying testament to this rule. The first problem to solve is water. There is none. It will not rain for 1,000 years. All water must be obtained from food, either the sparse, hardened plants or the flesh of other animals, or it must be manufactured inside the body. This is metabolic water, the byproduct of processing food. Every single drop is sacred. We see a small, skittering creature, perhaps descended from a rodent. But it is not a rodent. It has no fur. Fur, which is so good for insulation in the cold, is a liability here. It wicks precious moisture away from the skin. This creature is scaled. Its hair follicles have evolved, fused together over millions of generations, into a hard, keratinous, reptilian-style armor that is nearly waterproof. It is a mammal that has become a reptile. Its kidneys are biological miracles, hyper-efficient filters that extract every last usable molecule of water. It does not urinate liquid. It excretes a small, dry pellet of uric acid, just like a bird or a lizard. It is hunting. Its eyes are enormous, filling a third of its skull. In a world lived in darkness, vision is everything. But its most prominent feature is its ears. They are thin, delicate, and massive, larger than its entire head. They are not for hearing. They are radiators. They are flushed with a web of tiny blood vessels. By pumping blood through these enormous, paper-thin sails, the creature can vent its internal body heat into the cooler night air. This is Allen's rule, the evolution of large extremities in hot climates, taken to a grotesque extreme. In the distance, something larger moves. This is one of the new apex predators. 2 is nocturnal. Perhaps it is a descendant of a monitor lizard, or, just as likely, a carnivorous bird that has long since lost the power of flight. It stands 8 feet tall, a gaunt, skeletal frame built for speed. Its feathers are no longer feathers. They are thin, black, wiry filaments, like a porcupine's quills, designed not for flight or warmth, but to act as a sensory net, feeling the vibrations of prey through the ground and the air. It kills with a massive, beak-like claw and swallows its prey whole, bones and all, to extract the calcium and moisture within. But even these creatures are secondary. The true kings of this world are the insects, or what used to be insects. In the 250 million years since our time, they have had time to evolve. With a higher oxygen content from the hothouse era and no vertebrate competition, they have become larger. Towering over the salt flats are colossal 50-foot-high mounds. They are not rock. They are organic. They are the cities of a new kind of termite, descended perhaps from cockroaches. These mounds are architectural wonders. They are solar-powered air conditioners. Their complex, fluted structures and deep subterranean chambers are designed to catch the faintest breeze and funnel it deep underground, where water, farmed from the atmosphere itself, evaporates and cools the central nest. Inside, a complex society thrives, farming fungi in the climate-controlled darkness, while the world outside boils and freezes. And what of the plants? They are almost unrecognizable. The dominant tree is a subterranean horror. For most of its life, it is nothing but a vast, sprawling root system, sometimes miles wide, slumbering deep beneath the rock to find fossil water. Once a century, it sends up a single, massive, fleshy flower. It blooms for one night only, a spectacular, foul-smelling beacon in the dark, attracting a swarm of specialized bat-like pollinators. It fruits, and its seeds are scattered by the wind, and it dies, the stalk turning to dust by morning. This is the nightmare. It is a world stripped of all sentiment. There is no green, no blue, no gentleness. There is only rock, heat, and the terrible, efficient, gaunt biology of survival. These creatures are not evil. They are not monsters. They are simply the answer to a very, very hard question. They are the children of the crucible, and their world, which seems so permanent, so absolute, is already doomed. This eternal, static empire of desolation cannot last. The very thing that created Pangea Ultima will be its executioner. A supercontinent is a geological suicide machine. The problem, once again, is heat. The supercontinent is so vast, so thick, that it acts as a giant insulating blanket over the Earth's mantle. The incredible heat from the planet's core, which normally escapes evenly across the globe through rifts and volcanoes, is now trapped. For 50 or 100 million years, this heat builds up. The mantle beneath the supercontinent begins to superheat. It swells. A superplume of impossibly hot, pressurized rock, thousands of miles wide, begins to rise. It pushes up against the underside of the supercontinent. The great interior desert, the center of the landmass, begins to dome upward. The rock groans. It stretches. And then it cracks. This is the rifting. Magma, under immense pressure, floods into these new cracks. The supercontinent is being torn in half, from the inside out. Volcanoes, far larger than the ones that forged the hothouse, are born in the center of the desert. The sky is choked with ash. The ground splits open, and into this crack, this new valley, flows the ocean. For the first time in 100 million years, water returns to the great interior. The superocean, which had been lapping at the continent's edges, now floods into the heart of the landmass. It forms a new, narrow, linear sea. A new Atlantic is born. This is, itself, another mass extinction event. the nightmare creatures, the hyper-specialized survivors of the heat and the dry, are now inundated with the one thing they were never built to handle: water. Humidity, rain, a stable climate. Their perfect adaptations are now a fatal weakness. The desert dwellers are wiped out. The cycle has turned again. The great supercontinent of Pangaea Ultima is broken. It fractures into new, smaller continents, which will begin to drift apart. The world of the blast furnace is gone, replaced by a new world of coastlines, humidity, and new oceans. The nightmare is over. And the survivors? The few creatures that lived in those coastal fringes, the ones that never entered the great desert, will now inherit this new, fragmented, wetter world. They will find themselves on new, isolated continents, and the engine of evolution will fire up once more. Adaptive radiation will begin again. Life will explode into new, wonderful, and bizarre forms. The Earth does not care about nightmares or paradises. It does not build for permanence. It is a machine of cycles. The ground beneath us is not a stage. It is a restless, fiery, and creative engine. The creatures we imagined are just one fleeting, terrifying chapter in a story that has no end. And as the new continents drift apart, they are already on a new path. A path that will, in another 250 million years, inevitably lead them back together to begin the long, slow, terrible hunt all over again.